Coming up on NCC News at 4:45, one of the largest farm shows comes to the state fairgrounds. This year's show is one of a kind. We'll tell you why.
And they're supposed to help you kick the habit, but this cigarette alternative is making a big stink with parents.
And if you're a smoker who lives or works downtown, smoking outdoors may not be an option for you much longer. NCC News starts right now.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight at 4:45. I'm Caitlin Richards.
And I'm Andrew Trost. The Syracuse Common Council is considering the creation of a smoke-free zone to clean up downtown Syracuse, and that's our top story tonight. The city's health committee is considering banning smoking outdoors in Cathedral Square. The Syracuse Common Councilors say they consider smoking a compelling public health issue to the city. Cathedral area residents, along with the YMCA and members of the Tobacco-Free Onondaga County program, started a conversation with Tobacco-Free Zone with the council. The council says this is a worthwhile discussion because a smoke-free zone could reduce pollution and eliminate smoking, can spare the life of an innocent affected by secondhand smoke. In a phone interview, Common Councilor Khalid Bey told NCC News, quote, "Smoking kills, period. Passing an ordinance might not be practical, but a discussion is. This could start a campaign in an effort to change culture."
The governor has rolled out new incentives for communities who push to be tobacco-free. Governor Cuomo announced that the New York State Department of Health will award roughly $9.4 million in awards to groups who work to lower tobacco usage in their communities. The money will be distributed over 5 years in amounts ranging from $250,000 to $500,000. That funding will go towards promoting local engagement efforts and youth advocacy under the Department of Health brand name Reality Check. Almost 600,000 New Yorkers suffer from tobacco-related diseases, creating $8 billion in health costs a year. Smokers and non-smokers are using e-cigarettes as an alternative to smoking in social settings. But NCC News reporter Jackie Way tells us who the craze is catching on with and causing a controversy.
Vaping seems to have become a social trend, especially among teenagers. According to the CDC, the number of middle schoolers and high schoolers e-cigarette users have more than doubled in the previous years since 2012 and is currently on the rise. I spoke to a local woman from Syracuse who says she's even seen e-cigarettes being given as gifts among teenagers. Her godson actually received a full set of e-cigarettes with flavors and cartridges from a friend for Christmas, and he was ecstatic. But the weird thing is that he is actually a high school athlete who's only 17, which is below the legal smoking age of New York State. A similar case in the past 5 years is flavored cigarettes. And you know, flavored cigarettes, back in 2009, the FDA banned the sale of flavored cigarettes because of its appeal to teenagers. Teens were found to be 3 times more likely to buy flavored cigarettes than adults. Flavoring additives were thus banned by the FDA, but the FDA currently has no regulation on the sale of e-cigarettes. And e-cigarettes, you can actually get 400 puffs from one e-cigarette cartridge, and the cost is actually cheaper than a pack of normal cigarettes. Back to you, Caitlin.
Now, Jackie, you spent all day talking to people who either have cigarettes or e-cigarettes. What can you tell us? What is the major difference between these two?
Well, the major difference is that it is a smokeless cigarette, but there is still nicotine inside the cigarette. And one woman I talked to tried to use the e-cigarette to, stop smoking, but she said it did the exact opposite. She was at a wedding, and she really wanted a cigarette, but had an e-cigarette instead. And in the next 3 days, she started smoking, an entire cartridge a day, and eventually just got back into her old habit and started smoking cigarettes again.
Thanks, Jackie.
The flu season has only a few months remaining, but it's never too late to get yourself immunized. There have been 5 deaths in Onondaga County from complications related to the flu this season, and the Onondaga County Health Department counted an increase of reported cases in February, with over 100 new cases occurring each week. Almost 90% of the flu cases reported have been H1N1 in Onondaga County. and the Center for Disease Control lists New York as an area with widespread instances of the illness. Go to flushot.healthmap.org to easily find locations where you can get a flu shot in your area.
One of the largest events for agriculture in the Northeast is expecting an even bigger crop of visitors this year. Up to 30,000 visitors are predicted to come to the 29th annual New York State Farm Show, which opens its doors today at the State Fairgrounds in Syracuse. To accommodate the crowds, the Farm Show has expanded to fill 6 buildings in nearly 230,000 square feet. That expansion was made possible by the governor's decision to increase capital funding for the fairgrounds last year. The New York State Farm Show is featuring new and advanced technologies in dairy farming.
The next generation of farmers who are a little more tech savvy and want this kind of innovation, and that's one of the huge benefits of having tech savvy younger farmers who want to come back into the business.
The show features more than 400 exhibitors and continues through this Saturday. Central New York's Winterfest attracts hundreds of people from outside the state, and local restaurants and bars get an increase in customers during this time. The Suds Factory is one of the many restaurants that participate in Winterfest. The owner of Suds Factory says the festival helps increase the revenue during the winter months.
During the winter, number one, it does come at a slow time of year, and leading up towards the St. Patrick's Day parade and everything. But it's always been a fun, family-friendly, type of event, and it's always brought a lot of people to downtown Syracuse.
You still have time to check out Winterfest and what's going on downtown. Events end this Sunday.
2 men suspected of having robbed Syracuse University buildings were in court this morning. Christopher Duggar and Duncan Miller are accused of having been behind the burglaries that took place during Syracuse basketball games earlier this month. The 2 men were apprehended by a plainclothes campus security officer February 15th. They were seen in the Hall of Languages, and they began running when they saw campus security, according to police. Several Syracuse University buildings had been burglarized, including the Newhouse school and the law buildings on campus. Now, we've had a snowy CNY winter, and it looks like transitioning into spring isn't going to be a dry process. Oswaldo Campos-Torres joins us live on the weather deck with tonight's first forecast.
Well, as you guys can see, it just started raining right now. The temperature was really good, and the weather was really great until a certain point. I think like 2 minutes ago, it just started to rain, and it's raining. The rain gets hard, and then it comes down a little bit. So for the temperature, right now, the temperatures change. I don't know if you can see the graphic right here, but the temperature has changed. Right now, the temperature is at 45 degrees. The humidity is at 57%, and the wind is at 8 miles per hour. And as you know, it's very raining. Now for tonight, I still have the high at 34 degrees, and then the low at 31 degrees. I'm gonna tell you more about the weather, and I'm gonna tell you if it's gonna keep raining the entire week. So stay with us. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Oswaldo. Now, that warm-up you talked about is causing some problems. With temperatures rising into the 40s this weekend, there are widespread fears of flooding throughout central New York. 10 to 20 inches of snow blanketed most of Syracuse area, and if it melts too quickly, many of the low-lying areas are at risk of flooding. Flooding might occur around areas near streams and rivers. As chunks of ice break free, they run into each other, creating jams that could flood the areas that surround them. There are also concerns that ice accumulations on roads and buildings will cause problems heading into next week when temperatures return to below freezing. Now, they plague Syracuse every year when we approach warmer weather, but the DPW is doing its best to fight back. They're potholes, and they're a perennial nuisance. But crews are taking advantage of good weather to fix roads around Syracuse today. Crews were out yesterday along Erie Boulevard, and today they patched up roads near Lemoyne and Syracuse universities. The city sends out crews in response to complaints, and you can report potholes by calling your local DPW or go to seeclickfix.com/Syracuse.
If you've ever been ticketed for not having your registration up to date, New York State will now offer a helpful reminder when the date comes around. Governor Cuomo has announced that the Department of Motor Vehicles will now offer drivers email alerts and text messages when their registrations or inspections are about to expire. Customers will be able to sign up for the service either online, through mail, or at the DMV itself. The department says reminders will be sent out roughly 90, 60, and 30 days before expiration dates each year. The electronic alerts are part of the governor's plan to reverse the stereotype of the DMV being a symbol of inefficiency. After the break, a familiar threat to airplane security is back on the radar. Days before millions of Americans head home from Sochi, Homeland Security warns terrorists could be hiding explosives in their shoes.
And violence in the Ukraine continues. Over 600 people in the nation's capital were affected today, and we'll have the dramatic video when we come back.
That's a way. Yes. Here's a look at your stories across the nation. An evening youth service in Mississippi was cut short when the second floor of the Church Activity Center collapsed, sending 70 people plummeting down to the floor below. 35 people were injured in the fall, but none of the injuries were life-threatening. Investigators are still trying to determine the cause of the sudden collapse. And first it was toothpaste, and now it's shoes. The U.S. government has released another warning about possible airline explosives. The Homeland Security Department is warning airlines to look out for terrorists who could be hiding explosives in their shoes. Just last week, the department sent out a similar notice warning airlines traveling abroad about possible toothpaste explosives. Lawsuits against the National Security Agency's controversial data collection may be having an adverse effect. The Wall Street Journal reports that court rules on preserving evidence are actually preventing the NSA from destroying older phone records. While these lawsuits are active, the NSA could actually continue expanding its database of information. World financial leaders will meet this week to discuss international monetary issues at the G20 summit. While Treasury Secretary Jack Lew prepares for these meetings, he continues to focus on economic issues back home.
I don't believe that it's right for people to work for 40 hours and take home pay that's below the poverty line.
The president's hardline stance toward raising minimum wage and pushing Congress into action will encourage other countries to negotiate with the U.S. during these summit meetings. And on the global front, what started as a tentative truce quickly broke down as Kiev protesters advanced upon police lines early this morning. Reports from the Ukraine capital say more than 100 people have died today in the violence and more than 500 were injured. Video from the fighting shows protesters throwing firebombs at the police while police fought back with heavy gunfire. Protesters have captured at least 60 police officers. And while the tentative peace talks broke down in Kiev, things are looking positive for nuclear stability in Iran. Iran and 6 other world powers finished the first round of negotiations to set limits on Tehran's nuclear ambitions. The next round of negotiations is set to begin in Vienna on March 17th. Highly radioactive water that spilled from the Fukushima power plant did not reach the Pacific Ocean. The leak involved radioactive water from the Fukushima disaster in 2011 and was more potent than the water from past leaks. Tokyo officials say about 100 tons of contaminated water flowed through a rainwater drainage pipe. Finally, for many North and South Koreans, it was a reunion 60 years in the making. 80 South Koreans who had been separated from the family for 60 years got to embrace their loved ones once again. This is the first meetup between separated families in more than 3 years. The families will have to part once again in a couple of days.
If you've got plans to head to Winterfest or the New York Farm Show this weekend, stick around. Coming up next, Oswaldo Campos Torres is in from the rain with your full weather report.
Yeah, just count. Hurry up. Well, right now, the current temperature, I know you see a graphic right here to my right, but the current temperature is at 41 right now. There is 8 miles per hour, that's the wind. The humidity is still at 65, between 65 and 70%. The barometer is still also around 30.08. 30.08. So as we go, that's the current weather right now. Now the almanac, we have the highest was in 1930, which was 55 degrees. The low was negative 21 degrees. That was in 1966. So I'm pretty sure we're all happy that right now it's raining, but it's not negative 21. So the normals during this time are usually 27 degrees. Those are for the heights. And for the lows, the normal is 18 degrees. Now, as we go in the map, as you guys can see, let's talk about the snow right now for a little bit. In the snow, we accumulated about, Syracuse got 100 feet of snow during this time. This is the snow that has been accumulating. Albany got 68.8, so it's still Syracuse got the most snow. And if we keep looking more in depth, still Syracuse, as you can see, Syracuse got 99.9, and here in Fulton is 124. So they got a little bit more snow than we did. Well, that's okay. We're not jealous, right? So as you can see, the rain, this was the rain a couple of minutes ago. It was basically going up north, but right now we're getting the rain. So it's raining. As you guys noticed when I was outside, it was very rainy. I even had to wear an umbrella or else I would have gotten all wet. But still, we're gonna keep getting more rain throughout the night. As you can see, all this part that it's green right here, all this is gonna keep coming up. We have winds that are coming up, and there's gonna be a lot of rain throughout the night. This is the national weather forecast. As you can tell, Michigan got 36. Here in New York, overall, in New York, it was 41 degrees. For tonight, the highs are of 34 degrees, and the lows are of 31 degrees. And tomorrow is still almost the same temperature. The high is of 47 degrees, and the low is of 36 degrees. Now, if we look at the 5-day forecast, as you can see, we're gonna be having rain the entire week. 43% is going to be, we're gonna be in the heights of 43, and the lows of 25. And then for tomorrow, we're still gonna be having a lot of rain, so you better get those umbrellas ready, because it's the high of 47. Saturday, we're gonna continue with rain on the highs of 46 degrees. And Sunday and Monday also is gonna be very rainy, so get those umbrellas out.
Thanks, Oswaldo. Coming up next, we'll have the full sports report.
With only 2 days away, Syracuse boxer Tony Sharp Chow is preparing for his Golden Gloves fight. Although Chow has been training by doing more running and working on his strengths like counterpunching, he still can't help but feel nervous.
I'm nervous. I'm not really sure what kind of level of competition will be because I've never fought them before, but I'm confident. I know how good I am, I know how good they are, and I'm sure I'll succeed.
Chow says he doesn't know what to expect this weekend, but that he definitely is not expecting a loss. And it looks like the Syracuse Orange are all juiced out after an upset loss against the unranked Boston College. Syracuse scored only 22 out of 62 shots, making it a season low of 32.3% against BC. CJ Fair ended this game only scoring 7 out of 23 attempts. During the post-game conference, Coach Bayham concluded that if you get in enough of these nail-biting games, you can't win them all. Syracuse will be facing Duke once more this Saturday away from the Dome. After an amazing turnout last time they were here, the Special Olympics are back in Syracuse with the opening ceremony starting tomorrow afternoon. Director of Volunteer Management of Special Olympics New York, Stacy Etter, says that although volunteer registration is closed, that walk-in volunteers are always welcomed. Etter says they always need volunteers to cheer on the athletes since many of their families can't come. Events such as figure skating and snowshoeing will take place throughout the weekend in different parts of Syracuse, including the War Memorial and Thornton Park.
Thanks, Drusilla. When we return, everyone has their eye on the Sochi Olympics.
But we'll introduce you to one woman who used her lens to get a closer look.
Well, the Sochi Olympics have made headlines since they began, but not only because of the sports. One of the unexpected stars to come out of the Olympic sports is the eyeball selfie.
Now, you might be wondering what that means, but just take a look at this photo. Now, this woman, she thought she was taking a photo of the hockey game between Slovenia and Russia, but the camera was pointing at her own eye. The selfie is the second most famous eyeball to come out of the Olympics so far.
The first one goes to Olympic host Bob Costas, who has had an eye infection on the air. The obsession with Costas' pink eye has even prompted a parody Twitter account.
That eyeball certainly was an eyeful, wasn't it?
I see what you did there, Andrew.
This couldn't have been any cornea. Well, that's all the time we have for this afternoon.
Be sure to check out NCCNewsOnline.com for all of tonight's stories and more. I'm Caitlin Richards.
And I'm Andrew Trost. Enjoy your night and have a great evening.